Please welcome Liverpool's finest, the glamorous Water Bobby Dazzler Claire Sweeney. Actor and presenter Des Coleman. And a collector of all things 80s, young Jamie Breese.
I like the young, that's nice.
Well, the reason I say young, ladies and gentlemen, is we started work many, many years ago on the same programme.
Did he?
And, of course, I recall you from that programme. And then you were young Jamie Breese. OK, now, there was a survey done recently about our Sundays. Do we hate going to work on Mondays? What do you feel about it, Claire?
I mean, I don't mind now, because our job is quite precarious. You can be working Sunday and off Monday, so it doesn't bother me now. I don't kind of long for Sundays, but when I was a kid, I used to hate Sundays.
Me too.
And I remember when the theme tune for That's Life came on, I knew it was bedtime, and the school uniform had to be hung up, and I think, oh, I've got to go to school tomorrow.
Same thing with me. As a young kid, I lived in Brixham in Torquay, and they used to peal out on the church bells, Abide With Me. I think the local vicar had wrote this some years before. When I heard that going out, sat on the steps, I knew Monday, it was school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about going to work. I hate going to work on Mondays, but I hate going to work any day of the week, mate. I don't know about you. You know, so...
But, I mean, have you got the blues on a Sunday? I mean, do you love your job?
I'm very lucky, actually, because it's like, I feel like in my DNA, any time, whether it's Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, it doesn't matter what time in the morning, I'm sort of, you know, up and sort of ready. It's a bit of a pain if I'm next to somebody, you know, and they're a bit of a sleepyhead.
Are you bragging now?
Oh, no, let's just say it was you and I, Claire. Oh. I wish. Oh. No, let's just say, I'd be waking you up like this. I'd be shaking you, you know what I mean, to wake people up.
You seem like a very bright get-up-and-go person in the morning. What about you, Jamie?
Well, it was Sunday. You see, the weekends were all about the car boot fairs for me, as we all know.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to get up 5 in the morning, 6 early bird catches...
Explain to them how early you've got to get up.
Early bird catches the early worm at the car boot fair. Probably about 4 a.m, get there for 6. It's a little tip, pretend you're a dealer, pay them a tenner, go in there and go start buying stuff nice and early.
How much would you make?
Was this in the revenue? Or, I was only 11 and 12, so it was school money.
You start a car boot at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, well, I'd get there, and then you queue up with the dealers.
Those are the rules.
Yeah, and they cotton on to that
You
now.
need to get there in front of all the other pros, so you can scour. It's fast, you can look like that, see what you want, home in on it, buy, gone.
Exactly. And then, you know, you wrap up the day with the Antiques Roadshow in the evening, dreaming about all those lovely things you might find, you know.
That sounds like the perfect life to me.
Right. Now, we're obsessed with all things 80s. There's a film coming out shortly which is called Hot Tub Time Machine. It's a kind of Back to the Future thing, but taking you back to the 80s. Now, Hollywood is going in and making revivals and remakes of well-known films. The Karate Kid is one. There is a sequel coming up of the A-Team, you know, Mr. T.
Mr. T, I know him well.
And then, of course, we're going to have a sequel to Wall Street, which is very apt now, isn't it? Because with Wall Street, you know, greed, getting of money at anybody's expense. That's what's got us into the subprime era. That's what's got us into real deep trouble. How do you feel about that as a movie?
I don't know about these remakes, because every single time... Because when you see a film initially, you know, you get left with this memory, this everlasting memory.
Which was a good one, a strong one.
You get older, you mature, things become different in your life. So when you see a remake, it doesn't have that same sort of power for me. So I think... I remember Gordon Gekko, back in the 80s on Wall Street. I'm not quite sure whether this one is going to sort of
a remake,
ring
this
my...
is a follow-on, because it's a sequel. He went into jail, and they've done it... Since he's come out of jail, they've done the follow-up now, so it'll be more current. It won't have the 80s
well, they're clever, then.
mentality.
They're guarding against people like me and making a sequel as opposed to a remake.
And I think there are examples where sometimes sequels do come forward, French Connection too, and they're sometimes as strong, if not stronger. Now, I'm going to take you back to the 80s, Claire. What were you wearing?
Big hair.
What were you wearing, girl?
Pretty much the type of stuff I'm wearing now, actually. I've still
shoulders? Big shoulders?
Big shoulders. I used to sing on clubs. I was like 14, 15, then singing on all the social clubs. And I looked older then than I do now. And I used to have big, massive hair with inset hairspray, silver rah-rah dresses, shoes with butterflies on the back.
Lively. Now, going back to the 80s, the man that collects and buys and wheels and deals with all things 80s, I think that there, is something which is so memorable of our 80s. The size of that phone, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you like the size of that?
And I mean, when you consider we're now down to microchips and we're down to phones of this size, tell us about it.
This is the Dynatech phone. It's made by Motorola, who produced the very first mobiles. This is actually the very first handheld mobile phone. You know, they used to be really unwieldy, big clunky things you put in your car.
Do you remember that, ladies and gentlemen, hawking round something as big as this?
This is the Independent, which is really not that independent. It came just a couple of years later after the first one.
How much would it have cost then?
It was 1,200 notes back in 1986.
An absolute fortune.
What about the battery life on something like that? Were the batteries bigger than the phone?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the weight.
Just before we go, you guys, let's wind down on this. The Rubik Cube. Of course, we all know that from the 80s. I wasn't that familiar with this.
Slinky.
Slinky.
Yeah. Slinky.
But I'm sure Claire will tell you all about that little fellow there.
My Little Pony, I remember that. But I'll tell you what I used to do with that. Just change the stickers round.
The best thing to do with something like this is lob it on the floor, mate.
That's cheating, Claire.
Terrible. No, it's too difficult to do.
OK. Are they things and antiques for the future? That's what we want to know.
Absolutely. I've been saying it for a few years now. Those early mobile phones, you know, who keeps them? We don't keep the packaging, you know, we tend to discard them, sadly. So these are now going to be museum pieces in 5 or 10 years' time, I reckon. OK,
let me thank our guests. We have, of course, the fabulous Claire Sweeney. We have Des Coleman. And we have, I'll say again, young Jamie Breese. Now, with all this talk of toys, I'm beginning to feel a little bit like a kid again. Ladies